Thank you for joining us on this episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel the Law Olawale. Today happens to be the second year anniversary of this show, and I have a very important guest today, and we are also going to be talking about a very important topic. We're going to be talking about bail reform. And bail is something, it's money you pay to get out of jail before trial, if you've been arrested or accused of a crime. This is a very pivotal issue within the criminal justice system. But my guest today is an attorney and a state representative who has worked on many legislation about criminal justice, including bail reform. He has been elected to 5 terms in the Ohio House of Representatives and serves as a ranking member of the House Criminal Justice Committee. His name is David Leland. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. Can you please tell us more about yourself?
Well, I'm not that interesting, so I don't know how much more I can tell about myself, but I've been involved in public service in this community for over 50 years. As you mentioned, I served as 5 terms as an Ohio lawmaker representing the Clintonville community, the Northland community, and amazingly so, even though there was 30 years between the first time I did the legislature and this time, I'm still representing basically 90% of the same community that I did the first time. So I've always been honored to represent the North Columbus community that I live in, that I raised my family, and that I'm so committed to. I've also served as chair of the Ohio Democratic Party. I did that for 7 years. Probably my most notable example during that time was that I helped elect Bill Clinton president of the United States. We carried the state of Ohio twice when he ran for president, and so we were very happy about that. And there were other people that we elected along the way. I'm a partner at the law firm of Carpenter, Lips and Leland. We have 38 attorneys with offices in Columbus and Chicago. And the thing that I probably enjoy the most is that I've served 17 years as on the board of trustees for the Columbus Clippers baseball team. And I'm a big baseball fan, and I love the Columbus Clippers. I love the new stadium. I was there when we built the new stadium, and that's been a wonderful facility for everybody in Franklin County. And that's probably the thing I enjoy the most is my work with baseball and the Columbus Clippers. So, that's me in a nutshell. And now I'm running for judge in the Court of Appeals this November, and looking forward to taking the fight for criminal justice reform from the Ohio General Assembly to the 10th District Court of Appeals.
I disagree with you that you are not an interesting person with what you just told us. So, so what is it like to be on the board of trustees of the Clippers, which is the baseball
Oh
team?
man, that's the best. That's the best. I mean, first of all, we have a tremendous CEO. His name is Ken Schnocky. He is really the godfather of Columbus baseball. I mean, he's been there for, I don't know, it's more than 30 years. I don't know exactly. I think 1977, but I'm not totally sure. It's been a long time. This all happened back in the late 70s. They purchased the franchise. The Franklin County Board of Commissioners, Harold Cooper and Michael Dorian, purchased the franchise and was for like $25,000, if you can believe that, $25,000. Okay, I mean, this franchise is now worth millions. Okay, but in 1977, I think it was, or 76, they purchased the franchise for like $25,000, and they did it with the help of an attorney, a good friend of mine by the name of Frank Ray, who was counsel to the Columbus Clippers for many years. He and other people put this whole package together. Harold Cooper, Michael Dorian, and they worked with Ken Schnocky and other people. And we really have, I know I'm biased here, but I think we have like one of the best minor league facilities in the United States of America. I mean, we are constantly in the top five as far as attendance in all minor league stadiums in the United States of America. And when people come to that ballpark, I mean, they feel like they're in a basically very professional environment. And we have fought very hard to make it very affordable. I mean, most people don't know, or some people know, obviously know, is that right now you could take a family of four, go to the ballpark, take a family of four, bring your own food if you wanted to. You can't bring your own booze, but you can bring your own food if you wanted to. Family of four, a great night at the ballpark, clean, wholesome fun in a very professional environment, $20. $20. Now, where are you going to do that anywhere else in Franklin County? And we have worked really hard to make to keep the Columbus Clippers affordable, so for a family. So a family can have an affordable night out, all of them together, and not break the bank. We even sell on Mondays during the season. We even sell hot dogs for a dime. You can buy a hot dog for a dime. Now you can't buy a beer for a dime, but you can buy a hot dog for a dime. And we try to have those kind of promotions to make it as family friendly as it possibly can be.
Wow, it's quite affordable. And you grew up in Columbus and you went to Columbus North High School.
Well, actually, I didn't grow up in Columbus. I grew up in Kansas. I moved here in 1970, and I went to North High School, like you said. In fact, I was at North High School for about, I think it was 8 weeks, and the president of our senior class resigned. And so the vice president became president of senior class. And in those days, senior classes, they were huge. I mean, we had like over 600 kids in our senior class at North High School. And so I'd been there for about 8 weeks. And our senior class, we had a vacancy for a senior class vice president. So we all had a big auditorium, we all had a big assembly, and the teacher said, anybody who wants to run, come down and run. So there were about 13 people went down to run, and one of them was me, even though I'd only been there for 8 weeks. You know, I hardly knew anybody, but I thought this was a good way to get to know people. So I ran for senior class vice president at North High School, even though I'd only been there for 8 weeks, and I won. Okay, and I don't know, it was kind of the start of my involvement in Columbus, and you know, it's a great story to tell people of how you get started, even though you don't know anybody and you've been here for only 8 weeks.
And there you are. How old were you?
When I was in high school,
Yes, at that time when you won that
17, 17.
17. Wow. So when you got elected officially to a position at 18.
Oh yeah, that was the next year, 1972. I was involved with a gentleman by the name of Nelson Lancione, and he was organizing a effort to basically take over the Democratic Party in Franklin County. There was a squabble going on. I mean, you know, Democrats are always fighting about something, and so I aligned myself with him, got elected to represent the 19th Ward in the County Central Committee, and then because I was able to bring other people along with me, they elected me vice chair of the Democratic Party in 1972. So that was kind of the start of my political activity. Although I'd been a volunteer on campaigns before, but that was kind of the start of my official activities in politics.
At the age of 18.
It was 18, yeah. I mean, didn't want to wait. I just gotten we had just passed the 18-year-old vote. In fact, in 1971, some people in Columbus, Mary Webster, Lee Walker, Alan Malamed, these are people you probably don't know, but we all put together a campaign called Register Now. And we registered 18-year-old voters in the fall of 1971. And we registered more 18-year-old voters in the fall of 1971 than any county in the United States of America, 35,000, okay? And we were written up in newspapers and all that stuff. It was very exciting. So yeah, you know, I've been doing this for a while, and it's fun. It's exciting, but most of all, it's very satisfying to know that you're trying to do things that are going to help your community.
And thank you for doing that. Yeah. What inspired you to become a lawyer?
Oh, I think I was always going to be a lawyer. My dad wanted me to be a lawyer. He I think when I was 10 years old, he told me I was going to be a lawyer, and I think that's pretty well stuck with me. I really didn't think about anything else when I was in school that I was going to do that. I wasn't exactly sure what being a lawyer meant because, my vision of being a lawyer was sort of what we were watching on TV. And in those days, it was Perry Mason or The Defenders, TV shows I'm sure you haven't seen, but these were big shows during the 60s. And that was kind of my view of what being a lawyer was, all right? I actually found out what being the practice of law actually was after I graduated from law school, and it's a lot different than what it appears on television. So that's been very interesting.
And what was your first job like as a lawyer?
My first job was in private practice. I was with a gentleman by the name of David Day. Just the two of us. We were in private practice, and we did everything. I mean, we did criminal law, we did domestic law, we did insurance defense work. We did all kinds of, when you're in private practice and there's only two of you, you basically take whatever comes in the door. And he was very, very smart and very, very good. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot. I mean, I was just kind of this raw, brand new person graduated from law school. I really didn't know the ins and outs of practicing law, but I learned it. I learned it, the hard way, so to speak. I learned it by doing, and I practiced law with a young attorney by the name of Otto Beatty. I was just out. He wasn't that much older than me, and he was new practicing law, and I learned how to practice law with him. And there were other people that I had an opportunity to work with, but it was really kind of like thrown into the fire. You're like, okay, here, go ahead and do this, and it was very interesting, and I learned an enormous amount about the practice of law. After that, I went to work for the Public Employees Union, the Ohio Civil Service Employees Association. We had about 35,000 members in the state of Ohio. And that was very exciting too, because I was traveling all over the state of Ohio, representing employees in courthouses and in administrative law hearings all across the state. And it was fascinating and work, and a lot of it was shooting from the hip while you were doing it, because you didn't have that much time to represent to talk to your employees or to talk to your clients before you actually had to go in. But I remember going into courthouses in like Coshocton and in various other places across the state, and it was very exciting. I really enjoyed that time. I represented thousands and thousands of people. In fact, that was my first opportunity to represent clients in front of the Court of Appeals, when I represented members of the Ohio Civil Service Employees Association. I would represent a number of the employees at the Court of Appeals, and that was my first, hands-on experience in actually presenting myself at the Court of Appeals.
Yeah, interesting. And your work in the legislature, falls within the ambit of criminal justice system, because you worked extensively on, like, with bail reform, sentencing, conviction, and things like that. What made you to be so interested in the criminal justice system, even in the legislature?
Well, I mean, I think it's all about fairness. It's all about fundamental fairness. I mean, you want to have a criminal justice system that is fair. What did Martin Luther King say? That injustice anywhere is a lack of justice everywhere. Okay. I mean, it's like criminal justice is very important work. I mean, you're taking away somebody's freedom. When you're sentencing somebody to jail, when you're doing whatever in the criminal justice arena, you're taking away their freedom, their inalienable right that's guaranteed them in the Constitution. So you better be right in what you're doing, and you better be doing it in the correct way, and you better be doing it in a fair way. And there are lots of situations where we're not, okay? And I'm not going to, go through the laundry list of all the problems we've had in the criminal justice areas, for the last 250 years. But, but people are aware of it. And what we're trying to do now And this is mostly a bipartisan effort, actually. This is one of the rare issues in the General Assembly where there's a lot of buy-in by both Democrats and Republicans to try to reform the criminal justice system, to make it fair, to make sure that the people that we're punishing are the people we should be punishing, and the sentences that we're giving out are appropriate for the punishment. Now, you'd think that that would be obvious, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and that's the kind of things that we've been doing in the last 2 years. I mean, one of the 3 or 4 years ago, I worked with Bill Seitz and some others, Representative Hilliard, both of them Republicans, to amend our death penalty statute so that people with a severe mental illness, and we identified 4 of them in the statute, would not be put to death, okay? Because that just isn't right. And that was a significant change in Ohio's death penalty sentence. And we've done other things. We've changed the juvenile code so that no longer could a juvenile be sentenced to a crime while they were juvenile without ever having the opportunity of parole. In other words, if you're a young boy or a young girl and you've committed a crime that is so terrible that you're going to be there for a long, long time, you at least, when you get to be older, when you get to be 30 or 40 years old, you at least ought to have the opportunity, not guaranteed. Nobody's putting them back on the street. It's not guaranteed, but you ought to have the opportunity to at least tell people, hey, I'm at the age of 42, I'm not the person I was when I was 17. I've changed. I'm not the person. I can be a legitimate contributing member of society. Now, maybe they won't be. Maybe they're always going to be kept in the criminal justice system, but they ought to be given the chance to those of us who remember what it was like to be a teenager know that I don't know that any of us want to be responsible for all the things we did when we were teenagers now that we're adults. Now, some crimes you have to always pay the penalty for, but at least people should have the opportunity to present their case to a parole board and then have that adjudicated. So there's a lot of these kind of bills. I mean, I could go through a whole list of them, but there's a lot of these kind of bills that we're trying to do. This is a Democrat and Republican effort. This isn't, we're in the minority. The Democrats are in the minority in the House of Representatives. So if you're going to pass something in the law, you got to have Republican support. And the kind of reform that I'm talking about has been the product of both Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, thank you. A chance for a second chance. And let's talk about bill reform too. I don't want to assume that everyone watching or listening to the podcast knows what bail means. Can you describe to us what bail means?
Well, bail is basically, it's in the Constitution. You're not supposed to, have excess bail, and basically bail is, a monetary means of getting out of jail. Okay, I there's probably a more formal way of saying that, but that's basically it. Okay, it's basically a way of getting out of jail, and unfortunately, it was meant to ensure that people would show up. That's what bail was intended for. You got a trial date coming up in 2 weeks or a month. We're going to make you plop down X number of bucks because we know that if you plop down X number of bucks, you might be more likely to show up for the trial. But what it is transformed into in the state of Ohio and other places is basically, you said it at the beginning of the program. People are in jail. They're not convicted of anything. Okay. Remember in the criminal justice system, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. All right. And so we have people in incarceration, in jail or in prison, that it represents over 60% of all the people who are incarcerated in the state of Ohio at any given time, about 12,000 people a day. That's the number of people who are in jail because they cannot afford bail, okay? Because of the financial restrictions that are placed on them in bail. Now, what happens when you're in jail, okay, for financial reasons? Well, How many people get to keep their job if they're going to be in jail for an extended period of time? So you lose your job. And if you lose your job, then your house is probably next. Maybe your car is next after that. Maybe you lose custody of your children. You can just see how this thing snowballs, all because you can't afford to make bail. All right. You're not guilty of anything. You haven't been convicted of anything, but you're in jail and bail is set and you're there, and you can't get out because you can't afford it. All right. And a lot of people think that bail is there to keep us safe, but it's not. That doesn't work that way. Okay, because a lot of times, and there are case after case after case, where wealthy people, get convicted of crimes like killing people. I mean, just because you're wealthy doesn't mean you're not going to commit a heinous crime that ends up in the death of somebody. And those people, they'll spring for $50,000 bail or 75,000. There were 4 or 5 examples I gave to the House Criminal Justice Committee of people who spent huge amounts of money on bail, got out and either murdered their wife or murdered somebody or killed somebody after they were out on bail. So bail didn't make us safer. It just discriminated against people who were wealthy versus people who were poor. And so we're trying to do away with that. We're trying to replace the bail system with another system where judges have to take a look at the cases and make some decisions as to what is the best way to make sure that this person comes back for trial. And so what we've done is that we've said, now we haven't eliminated bail. Bail is still an option under the proposal, but it has to be, you have to be able to afford it. And you have to do an analysis of what people's assets are and what their ability to pay is. And you have to make the bail respond accordingly to a person's ability to pay. But the bill also provides for what we call ways of people coming, principles, 15 different ways that a judge can put restrictions on a person that is seeking to be released. And some of those things could be electronic monitoring. He or she could require that the person be subject to electronic monitoring, that they be under the custody of a halfway house, that they may have to go to some sort of drug counseling. There's about 15 different principles that a judge can levy on a person, which I think are more likely to produce the fact. What we're trying to do, again, we're trying to make sure the person shows up, for the trial when their trial date shows up. And we think that those 15 different conditions of release are more likely to produce people at the trial than a bail system, which keeps people locked up in jail with terrible consequences. Now, we also believe that there are people out there that just don't need to be released, that they're so dangerous to the public. And instead of just levying these large bail numbers and fooling the public into thinking, well, we've put $1 million bond on this person, they're never going to get out. Well, sometimes they do get out, okay, if they're wealthy and they can afford to get out. So what we've increased is the ability of the judge to issue a preventive detention process, so that crimes that are so serious, and usually those are crimes against, crimes of violence against people, the judge can just do away with the whole bail concept completely and just put the person in preventive detention. Now, you got to have a hearing on that. You can't just do it. And I think one of the reasons bail is popular is because right now you don't have to have a hearing. You say, okay, I'm going to set bail at $100,000 or whatever. If we have a preventive detention, then they have to have a hearing, they have to have evidence and all that kind of stuff. So it makes for a little bit more work in the process. But I think at the end of the day, it keeps people in jail who should be in jail, and it lets people out who should not be, who are only there because they cannot afford the bail process.
Thank you. And the inability for people to afford their bail has led to a lot of people pleading guilty for crimes they did not commit.
You're so right.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the noggin. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're just you hit it right on the noggin. People will like, man, I can't stay here anymore, and they plead them down to something less that say, okay, well, we'll let you out if you plead with this one ever, whatever. Okay, let me sign that. I want to get out of here. I can't stay here anymore. So then they have a criminal record. Okay, and what does that mean as far as future job opportunities and another collateral damage along the way? So it just creates a lot of problems for people going forward. It costs money. It costs over $260 million for the state of Ohio to keep people in jail that don't need to be in jail. So it costs taxpayers money. It keeps people from being productive citizens because once they have to check the box that says, I'm a convicted person, that makes them less likely that they're going to be able to be hired for positions. It just creates a lot of problems in society that we don't need to have.
Thank you. And what is the status of the proposed bill reform that you're working on in the legislature?
Well, there are two bills. One of them is in the Senate, and one of them is in the House. I'm a co-sponsor of the bill in the House, House Bill 315, with a Republican, Representative Brett Hillier from Coshocton or Holmes County. I don't know. Actually, it's Tuscarawas County. I'm sorry, Brett. If you're watching, it's Tuscarawas County. In the Senate, there are two Republicans who are sponsoring the same bill. Senator McCauley and Senator Huffman, who are co-sponsors of the same bill. So there are three Republicans who are in favor of this, and me. I'm the only Democrat. Okay, so this is obviously a bipartisan effort. Some of it, we're still working out all the details. We're still, it's a complicated issue, and so we want to make sure we get it right. And so we're going to be introducing what we call a substitute bill in the very, very near future to change some of the things that we had originally, some of the notification issues, and I think we're going to expand the preventive detention provision of the bill so that more crimes will be included, where a judge can just not have to require to do bail at all, just keep a person in prison if they feel that they're a threat to the community. So we're still working, we're still fine tuning it, but those are the bills. I think it's 182 in the Senate, but I'm not sure. But we have two companion bills, as we call it, one in the Senate and one in the House.
Thank you. And bail and jail itself, they are like industries on their own because you have around every courthouse, you have the bail bondsmen's offices, and for most jails, they are being run by private entities. How has this impact the criminal justice system when it comes to bailing and jailing?
Well, I mean, I think it puts people in jail who don't need to be. I mean, that's the biggest problem. That's the biggest problem. I mean, there's other issues too, but it puts people in jail that don't need to be. And what our bill does is put people in jail who need to be in jail. Okay, I mean, by increasing the preventive detention provision of the Ohio Revised Code, more people are going to be in jail who should be in jail, as opposed to people being in jail just because they can't afford to make the bail. And it's complicated. There are lots of moving parts in this legislation, but those are the two basic principles that we're trying to do. We're trying to make the system fair. We're trying to protect the public because that's important too. We want to make sure that the public is protected from people that it should be protected from, but we don't want people languishing in jail because they can't afford their bail.
Thank you. And the system is always difficult to change when you have profit in the margins for some people. So we can only assume that the people within the bail bondsman industry and people with private jail will oppose these bills. What are your thoughts in trying to make sure these bills get passed, regardless of the opposition from the people who make profit from jailing people?
Well, I mean, it's all about educating other members of the General Assembly. Fortunately, in the House, I can't speak for the Senate. In the House, we have 47 co-sponsors of this bill, and for people who have done their government class in the state of Ohio, you know that you need 50 votes to pass a bill out of the House. And so we have 47 people who have already, I think it's 47, it could be 46, but we 46, 47 people who have already co-sponsored this bill. And so we're very close to having the number that we need to get this bill out of the House. And so, we're hopeful that we can convince, 5 or 6 other people in the legislature to join us in this process.
Thank you. And you've also worked on sentencing. Can you tell us about that?
Well, the sentencing provision, had to do with all sorts of making sure that the sentence is appropriate for the crime. I don't have the chapter and verse in front of me as far as all the different issues that we've been dealing with, but it's just basically what we're saying is that, look, we want to make sure that whatever crimes that are being committed, that the penalties, fit what that particular crime is, and that is a process that we're going through all the time. I mean, we've been it comes to us all the time in all sorts of bills, because sometimes people think they want to be tough on crime. That's how, that's what they want to do. They want to take that back to their constituents. I think it's better for us to be smart on crime, to make sure that we're doing exactly what we need to do in order to make sure that the penalty, actually fits the offense.
So you can be tough on crime and still be fair.
Yes, fair is key.
That is key. You also worked on the issue of domestic violence. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, Representative Janine Boyd, my good friend from Cleveland, sponsored this bill called Aisha's Law, and it's all about a woman, a friend of hers, who was murdered by her husband. Her husband actually had been a former member of the Ohio House of Representatives, and was actually, I don't know if he was a judge at the time he committed the murder. I know he'd been a judge. I don't know if he was a judge at the time he committed the murder. But and so basically, what the law does a lot of things, but basically, for the first time, it creates a strangulation offense, because it's pretty clear, and we're like the only state. I think there were 49 other states that had a strangulation offense before us, and we haven't actually still done it. I mean, the law hasn't passed. It passed out of our committee, but it hasn't passed out of the House and then the Senate. But it creates the offense of strangulation, because in most people who are experts in the domestic violence area know that the strangulation is sort of the canary in the coal mine. That's the beginning. That's really when you realize that's when people who are engaging in that activity are demonstrating their power over another, and it is very much an indication of domestic violence. And so there needed to be something. Most people were like, if you didn't see an act, and sometimes you don't see the results of it, you don't see the necessary physical results of strangulation, because it doesn't necessarily leave a mark, as other kind of assaults do. But it's very important, and it leads to much more dangerous activity on the part of the abuser. And so we felt that should be a standalone offense, and that's what we've done in that House piece of legislation that passed out of the committee with a couple amendments that I added to it, and passed out of the House, and now we're hopefully going to have it passed out of the Senate.
Wow, that's a very important legislation, because if you think of strangulation, it's really very personal.
Yes.
And especially with an intimate partner.
Right.
It shows power and domination. You also played an integral role in increasing public defenders. Can you?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to. We did increase the money for public defenders, and last session, Representative Hilliard, he and I seem to be doing this kind of stuff together. He and I sponsored a bill that would actually help pay the education costs for people who graduate from law school and then go to work for a public defender's office in an area that is that's needed, in an area where services are are needed for the public for that particular area. And it would be up to $50,000 in reimbursement as far as college costs were concerned. So it's a considerable sum of money. And we were hoping that that would be an incentive to get people who graduate from law school, who may have a large law school debt, to give them an incentive to go to work in a public defender arena in communities that need it. And so again, that passed through the House in the last session. It didn't make it through the Senate. We still have to work it, through the House this time, and hopefully we can, take it over the goal line in this session of the General Assembly.
Thank you. Will it also increase the salaries of public defenders?
It does not increase the salaries of public defenders, but it obviously gives a public defender money that they can use to pay off their college debt. So it sort of indirectly increases their compensation, but it doesn't increase the salary directly.
Thank you. Earlier, you mentioned working on the legislation to eliminate the death penalty for people with severe mental illness.
Right. House Bill 136, I'm doing this from memory, so I hope that's right, was passed in the General Assembly, and actually it went through both houses. And basically what it did was it said, recognize, look, in order to, you're an attorney, you understand that in order for people to have committed a crime like that, they have to have the appropriate mens rea to do it. And if you're suffering from such a severe mental illness as was enumerated under the statute, you clearly weren't engaging in that. Now that doesn't mean we're going to put you back on the street, okay? Because if you qualify for, if the crime was so terrible, it was so terrible that you would be eligible for the death penalty, but you don't get it because you suffer from a severe mental illness. If that's your situation, then by applying for the exemption, for the severe mental illness exemption, you also are basically saying that you agree to taking life without parole. So those people will not be released on the street, but they will be incarcerated with a life without parole sentence. But we will not be putting them. They will not be eligible for the death penalty because of their mental illness. It just seemed like the appropriate thing to do, given the severity of that particular punishment.
It's more about punishment with compassion.
Again, I started the program. I said, people should be punished appropriately, and that's very difficult to do. And in fact, we have a bill right now in the General Assembly, House Bill 183, that would do away with the death penalty completely in the state of Ohio. And so we're having discussion and conversation and testimony about that. But so the whole concept of having punishment, making sure you have the right punishment for it, that's partially what we're about.
Yeah, equity and fairness.
Yes.
And you recently decided to run for judge of the Court of Appeals.
Yes, I did.
What prompted your decision to leave the legislature and go for the bench?
Well, obviously I've been involved in criminal justice issues for a while now, and so it was a natural extension. The legislature, I've been in the legislature for 5 terms, 4 of them consecutively, and in Ohio, when you serve 4 of them consecutively, then you're term limited from serving anymore. And so if you want to continue working on issues that you've been working on, such as I have in the area of criminal justice and other issues, then I thought the most appropriate place would be to try to win a seat on the Franklin County Court of Appeals. The Franklin County Court of Appeals is extraordinarily important. Those of us who are in understand the creation of our the United States of America understand that the judiciary was created, and this was adopted by the Ohio Constitution in 1803, but this was in our Constitution in 1796. The judiciary was a co-equal branch of government with the legislative and the executive. And in fact, the judiciary was created to sort of be a watchdog of the legislative and executive branch to make sure that they didn't exceed their responsibilities and to protect the rights, the individual rights of citizens. That's what the judiciary was all about on the federal level and on the state level. And so the 10th district being in the what I say the epicenter of state government, because the 10th district encompasses all of Franklin County. So that means the Ohio General Assembly, that means the governor, that means all the state agencies. We're kind of right smack dab in the middle of everything that's happening in government. And so it's an extremely important jurisdiction to make sure that the rights of people are protected. And that's especially true now because I think we see, all over this country, we see our democracy under assault by some people who would like to do away with the democracy that we've known for over 250 years and replace it with more of a authoritarian type of government. So if you believe in a democracy that we all grew up believing in when we were in school and we learned about, in our history lessons, and if you believe in the rule of law, which in our country means that everybody has to follow the same rules and that one person doesn't get to just tell everybody the things that they need to do, that there's a set of rules and laws that govern our nation and govern our society. If you believe in the rule of law and you believe in a strong, vital democracy, then you have to have a strong, independent judiciary to go along with that. And so that's why I'm running for the court to help with others to create that strong, independent judiciary.
Thank you. And what will make you unique as a judge?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe my background in baseball. I don't know. I don't know. I hope that does something. I think the fact that I'm in a law practice. I'm with the law firm Carpenter Lipson Leland. A big law firm in Columbus and with an office in Chicago and all that. So I have that experience. I have the political experience that we've talked about. I've also was a arbitrator mediator with the Federal Services Impasses Panel. I was appointed to that by President Bill Clinton. And so I've had experience doing arbitrations and mediations across the United States of America. And then with the 5 terms, I'm sorry, not 5 years, 5 terms as an Ohio lawmaker, it kind of all that put together, I think, kind of gives me a unique perspective on the kind of cases that we're going to be seeing at the Court of Appeals. And so I'm looking forward to helping work with others. There are 8 total judges at the Court of Appeals. I'm just going to be one of 8 if the people of Franklin County elect me. And I'm looking forward to working with them as we do the best job we can in protecting the people of the state of Ohio.
Yes. Do you believe that your experience in writing or making laws will assist you to be a good judge in interpreting those laws?
Well, I think it gives me a lot of experience. Obviously, I've been reading a lot of laws over the last few years. I mean, especially in the criminal justice area, I've been dealing with many statutes, and I've heard the debates on a lot of issues that affect the Ohio Constitution and other issues. So I think that's going to give me a very interesting perspective going into the job.
Thank you. You also represented union members during your career as an attorney. What was that like?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was interesting. It was fun. It was exciting. It's always good to help people. I always feel like I'm really doing what I should be doing when I'm helping people. And in those situations, you're helping people with their jobs, with their situations, with their employment. It just was a very positive experience. I was a young lawyer at the time. And so running around the state of Ohio, arguing in the Court of Appeals, arguing in the Common Pleas Court, doing this, representing people, winning big judgments. Sometimes I would win multi $1,000 judgments on behalf of my clients. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the I enjoyed the work. Because I felt like I was making a positive difference.
Thank you. There's this saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And everyone goes in either any kind of office, whether it's a judge, senator, or Congress, with their own personal qualities. What are those personal qualities that you have that you believe will make you a great judge? Not just a good judge, a great
Well, I
judge.
don't know that I'll be a great judge. I'm going to let somebody else. I'm going to let you and the people of Franklin County decide what kind of judge I was. If I'm lucky enough and honored to be elected to that position in November. I don't know. At this point in my life, Emmanuel, I'm a little bit older than you, and at this point in my life, um, I do things because I want to make a difference. That's the only reason I'm running for office, okay, is to make a difference. A lot of people run for office. I'm not saying that they run for judge, but a lot of people run for office because they want to run for the next office. They want to, they're ambitious, whatever, and that's good. I mean, ambition is good. Strong ambition is what built this country, and I'm in favor of people being ambitious. But when you're in a situation like I'm in, at this point in my life, I do this because I want to make a difference for my community. I want to make a difference for the people that I've lived with, that I've worked with, that I have grown up with for my life. And I think I can make a difference. I think that I can make the situation of the law. I can make the representation in the Court of Appeals better because I'm there. I mean, we'll find out. But that's why I do it. I do it because I care about my community and because I think I can make a difference.
Thank you. And if you're watching this, if you live in Franklin County, if you're going to vote in November, you've heard it from the man himself. This is a man that has spent most of his life representing people, union workers, his constituency, and all he cares about is making a difference. If you believe that you need him to make a difference on the Court of Appeals in November, you decide. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been wonderful talking to you and sharing your ideas with us.
Well, Manuel, that time went by so quickly. I can't believe it. I can't believe how quickly that went. You're a great interviewer, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about things that are very, very important to me.
Thank you. And for those of you watching this episode, thank you for joining us. I will ask you to subscribe to us on Facebook, on Instagram, and also the podcast. Until next time, stay blessed.